So, all right, let's get going, boys and girls. One, I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving. It was very relaxing, uneventful, which is kind of okay by me. Um, so, anyway, something didn't look right there. Hold on a second. Okay, so there we go. So, I hope everyone was good. I hope whatever, you just had a good time, able to have a good meal and hang out with some good people and do some great fellowshipping. So I did get to hang out with my son, so that was kind of cool. My daughter, I didn't see her; she's out of town. But anyway, let's get going. So I like to start this call off with wins. So tell me some wins on what's going on out there, right? Tell me, has anybody had some wins from last week? So I know there are because I get emails and texts when they happen. So Mary, you
Yeah,
had
I had some wins. So um I had signed a buyer client, and then what I did is I signed up on Nextdoor, and I did a post just to the neighborhood, you know, and I just said, is there anyone who wants to sell their home? And I had about 7 really positive responses from, I've had 4 preview appointments out of it, but I had about 7 responses of people who said, I was thinking I'll sell in the spring, but if the circumstances are right, I would consider selling now. So I had good response.
so that's good. So and all you pasted was hey, I have a buyer and we're trying to find a home, something to that effect, right?
I had to be careful, so I said I'm looking for a home. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but yeah, I put my signature line. I had to say that my that a realtor and my phone number and Aubrey and Associates, and I said yes, they're looking for a home.
Right. So, and the thing I like about that technique right there is when, versus prospecting, where people struggle with making calls, who do you know? Who do you know? It's really because that type of call, says it's all about me, what can you give me? So, however, when you approach it from, I have a client that I'm trying to serve. So, in other words, you're not asking for business as much as you're asking for help to help somebody else. I mean, it's just an angle that people I think are going to be more responsive to, and that's why I say in text messaging, I posted that in the Aubrey and Associates Facebook group, where the other I called it a prospecting tip. What if text 5 people every day asking them for help? You are looking for a home for a buyer. You need to keep it generic. So you need to keep it generic. I mean, in other words, you don't want to say I'm looking for a home in a such and such a neighborhood with so many square feet, so many bedrooms, bathrooms, certain price range. You just want to keep it generic so that if anybody's thinking or knows of somebody that's thinking of selling a home, they'll contact you. You don't want to be so specific that you eliminate everybody, so you want to be generic. Does that make sense? So Mary did it on one of those next door neighbor groups. Now you got to be careful with those groups because if you there's there's the anti everybody group, and it's kind of like Facebook. There's somebody's going to complain about everything at one point or another. So, and that's just the way it is. So you have to be careful that you don't get like banished from the group or anything like that. So you want to come from a position of serving your client, and you need help. So I just love that. Well, it rings sense. I apologize, my phone ringing. So you want to, so you have to be careful so that you're not coming from a sales perspective, that you're coming from a servant. You're serving somebody. So, and that's the way to do it. So I love that. Anybody else want to share some wins? I know it's a short week, but things happen. So no, okay. Let's go. So the next question is what are people struggling with? Any struggles right now? Nobody's struggling. Just the only struggle is making a call on Monday morning, right? So that's your struggle. So I would say this time of year, the biggest struggle would be keeping on schedule, right? I mean, because it is a busy time of year, and that is a struggle to manage business when you got all these things just pulling at you. And the key to that whole thing is you just have to just maintain a schedule. Is that if as long as you maintain a schedule, then you'll be fine. And if the schedule is lighter because of the time of year, that's okay. It's okay to have a lighter schedule to say, yeah, I'm only going to work this many hours, or I'm going to take off, like last week if you took off Thursday and Friday. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. That's your schedule. As long as it is your schedule, then it is your schedule. So, so that's okay. So anyway, so I would say one of the biggest struggles this time of year is just keeping in the mindset, the frame of mind to work where, you just got, it's cold out in the morning. It's like, gosh, I want to just like crawl back under the covers kind of morning and stuff like that. You wake up, it's cold. So, it's just that time of year, and it just kind of, it's dark at 5:30. It's hard to keep the frame of mind to keep going. However, you have to. I mean, the key is you have to continue to do it so that you, again, remember, this is about next quarter. This isn't about, obviously you can get business now. You can get people signing up, but you can get a lot of people interested that are at least raising their hand to follow up with. So a lot of what you're doing right now is literally building a list of people that say they want to do something in the beginning of the year, and then when you go and start January 2 or whatever the first workday back is, then you have this nice list of people to start going after. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at now. So anybody learn anything from last week? What did you learn? All right. Who's
sure I did. I'm just brain dead.
Grinch. I want Grinch to learn. I want Grinch to tell me what they learned. So, I'm sorry. Well, who was that said something? I apologize.
You said, what did we learn? I'm sure I did. I'm just...
Well, one thing, based on what Mary said, she posted asking for help and got responses. That's a great learn right there. We should all learn from something from that. Who do you know that, I'm trying to help somebody. See, it's a lot better approach when you say, I'm helping someone, I'm serving somebody, right? Rather than, what can you give me? So when you're asking people to give you something, they're a little less, they're not quite as happy to help, where if you're actually demonstrating. But the other thing is, too, if they're thinking about buying or selling and they see you out there hustling to serve your client at high levels, then they're like, hey, that's the agent I'm looking for. So if anything, even if you don't get any kind of responses, what you're doing is you're doing a dance that shows that we exist to serve, and that if you're my client, I'm going to work hard for you. So, that's just a great little message to give there. So, I posted this morning. I don't know if you guys saw that. This morning I posted on Facebook. So I called it a sales tip, right? So, tour guide or salesperson. Remember, sales is a series of questions that leads a prospect to an answer, a decision, right? That leads a prospect to a decision. So we all know that, right? So what that also means is, if you're telling ain't selling, right? This is not a history or a grammar lesson, but telling ain't selling, right? So if you're telling people things, then you're obviously not in sales. So I love that. So then it goes on to say, when you are showing houses, are you a tour guide and make statements like, this is a living room, as if these intelligent people can't figure that out on their own? This is a kitchen. A 5-year-old knows it's a kitchen. You shouldn't be doing that. So I love this question. So instead of saying, hey, this is a living room. How about try this instead? If you chose this house, how would you place your furniture? And the idea behind that is a couple things. One is you're asking questions, so they're going to say, we don't like this house at all. Great, then let's get the heck out of here, right? But the other thing is, remember, when they're deciding if they want the house or not, they need to visualize themselves in it. So, and the thing is, so that even if they say they don't want that house or their body language doesn't want it, you can pay attention to how they're behaving, right, in a certain style, right? You ever notice when you get them in a certain style and they start getting excited, they like it, and the house looks nice, but there may be something about it that may not work, but they get excited and they start talking about it. So if you can get them talking about it, you'll discover whether, A, they like this type of house, this floor plan. So once you understand the floor plan that they like, what excites them, then you can narrow down your search to those types of properties and then just get them and show them a couple of those. So it's a very, very powerful way to go by just saying, hey, if you chose this house, how would you place your furniture? Because if they say, well, we don't like this house, and then you can find out why. So I'm too curious. What is it about this house you don't like? Or what is it about this house you do like? Well, I like this flow, the way this floor plan lays out. I like this. I like that. I always when I had kids, I always liked a multi-level because you had that, or a Rambler, but a lot of Ramblers, they tended to be smaller or expensive if they were larger. So where a multi-level, you had your main floor, you kind of had that kitchen area, the family room, sliding door. Everything was kind of right there. You had the little hallway with the half bath coming from the garage with the laundry room. So you kind of had all the functioning of life going right there in that main level. Then you had your bedrooms upstairs, and then you had your basement for whatever you needed for. Always enjoyed that floor plan. That was my personal preference. So, so if I were the buyer, and I would start getting excited in one of those plans, and then that gave you the clues of what I was going to buy, right? So that's what you're looking for. You're looking for clues on what are they going to buy, right? So I always ask the question, show them what they ask for, but know what they'll buy, right? So in other words, they're always going to tell you, I always remember an instance one time where I had a buyer, and I was chasing what they asked me for, and what they were asking for was a Rambler in Sandy for like $250 or $200 at the time. And this was many, many, many years ago, where it really didn't exist. I mean, you could find them and they were maybe run down dumps. But so anyway, I couldn't get a hold of them over the weekend. Monday morning, I finally got a hold of them on Monday morning. They bought a multi-level home in Taylorsville. So the lesson there, they had me chasing a unicorn, right? It didn't exist. And yet in the meantime, they were out looking at homes not like I asked for. Why did they ask for Rambler and Sandy? Probably somebody told them. But, they, whatever happened, they went out and they saw a house on a Saturday or whatever, walked in, open house, or called the listing agent, whatever, and bought it. So the lesson is, show them what they ask for, but know what they're going to buy. The key is you got to learn what are they going to buy. You got to figure it out, right? And not always pay attention to what the actual words they're telling you, but but how they're behaving and things like that. I mean, if what they want exists, great, then sell it to them. But the odds are great. What their wish list usually their wish list doesn't exist. So you got to really drill down and figure it out. I tell the story. I'll try and make it quick. I had a client come in from out of town. They were out, a friend, a referral. They were coming from Texas. He was in the Air Force, and he was going to be a professor at the university. He was an active duty colonel in the Air Force, and his wife wasn't working at the time, so they had no children, and based on their age, they weren't planning on having any. He was not too young. A colonel's not a young person typically. So they had no friends or family here, and I asked them, and they wanted to live in Sugar House, and I said, about the house, they had a house in Texas. I said, tell me about it. Oh, we bought it brand new. Oh, okay, great. So brand new Sugar House, not adding up yet, right? So then I said, do you have any friends or family here in Utah? They said, no, we used to live in Layton years ago. And so he worked at Hill Air Force Base, but that was about 10 or 12 years ago. So he really didn't have any friends there. And I said, did you guys own a home there? And they said, yes. And they said, tell me about the house you own there. And they said, oh, we bought it brand new. And so I'm like, okay, they have this theme of brand new. The Sugar House isn't going to work. So, and the price range they were in, I mean, Sugar House can work if you have unlimited budget. because then you can buy newly remodeled type houses. But anyway, so finally, I mean, I showed them everything. We went to Holiday area, further south, Sandy. I mean, we just, we got the Sandy in their price range. We weren't getting new. We were getting newer, but we're talking 60s and 70s rather than the 20s and the in the 40s. So anyway, so I sent them out on a drive to go to like Harriman, and this is before Bangor Highway went across, all that kind of stuff. So I said, but go off to the university at 4 o'clock or 4:30, whatever time you get done work, and drive to this address, and we'll talk tomorrow. So they said, no way, we're doing that drive every day. So I finally took them out to Stansbury Park, and they loved it. Sold them a house out in Stansbury Park. And the thing was, I knew what they wanted. I knew what they were going to buy, but I showed them what they asked for. I kept showing them what they asked for. I kept showing them what they asked for. But in the back of my mind, I knew that Stansbury Park was the deal because it was the shortest drive, the easiest drive for a newer type home that they could get with a decent sized yard for their budget. Now, I mean, they could have went to Harriman, but the drive was like an hour, where in Stansbury Park it was 30 minutes. I mean, 30, 40 minutes max. But Harriman, you get in rush hour traffic. I mean, it could take an hour, hour and a half on certain days. So anyway, the point was, so I had a client that come in and said he wanted to buy a house in Sugar House, and I wound up selling my house in Stansbury Park. But the lesson is, show them what they asked for, but know what they're going to take. And how I knew why they could take Stansbury Park was because they didn't have any friends or family here. That was key. That was a key answer. And it was key to know that they loved brand new. It was also key to know that they didn't have any friends or family, so that they weren't stuck in a certain area. They weren't stuck in certain schools. They were wide open as long as I can find them the newest house in their budget that was the easiest drive to their job. And it worked out perfect. So anyway, I love that story. They asked for a Sugar House, sold them Stansbury Park. People are like, what? But the key was I kept drilling down, and finding out what it is they were going to buy. So, because I knew what they wanted, but what they wanted didn't exist. So I had to figure out what they were going to buy. So take that, that's a great lesson. But the key is how I determined that was simply asking questions, right? Remember, sales is a series of questions that leads to a prospect to a decision. Right? It's that simple. It's a series of questions. If you're telling, you're not selling, right? So that's how you double check your math, right? 1 + 1 = 2. To go backwards, 2 - 1 = 1. That's how you check your math. So sales is a series of questions. So how you check your math is telling ain't selling. So if you're telling, you're not asking questions. Now, you can tell somebody something, but you always have to end it with a comma new question, right? So, let me think of a good example. So I mean, if they just ask a question, just answer it and say, well, that's what you want, isn't it? So what do you do to sell homes? Well, that's a great question. When you list with me, we're going to publish your listing on over 80 websites. We're going to do, we're going to do the open house. We're going to do the mailers, that kind of stuff. I mean, and then comma, well, that's what you want, isn't it? That type of question. So instead of just telling them, tell them what you're going to do, but then ask the question at the end. So anyway, make sense? So it seems like you're still all on the line. So anyway, so that's it. Let's any thoughts, questions? So remember, next Monday we switch. Agent. I will send out an email, and it's not going to be. We're not going to pick who's going with who. We just literally do like a shift. And then we'll assign you a new partner. We'll just move everybody down one person, and then the bottom person on one column. We have 2 columns of agents. We'll just take one column, drop it down one, and then the bottom person move it back to the top. So I mean, it's not going to be us picking who's with who, and and that's okay. Learn. I mean, yeah, you're not always going to get your friend, and that's okay. So let's, so just learn to deal with it. And you would be surprised. You would be surprised at people when you finally meet somebody and hang out with them for quite some time that they're nothing to what you thought they might have been. And that was an exercise we had in a sales training one time that we had to like pick out people, go to lunch and kind of based on looking at them, we would have these questions, and then we had to answer the questions in our mind about each person at the table based on just us looking at them. Then we had to go around, and then we asked the questions, and we went around the table, and everybody was answering the questions. And, and the exercise was to that when you look at someone, you prejudge them all kinds of different ways to Sunday. And the reality is, all 9 times out of 10, everything you're saying about it is not even close to being true. So it's very, very important to learn to work with people that you might think you might not like to work with them. But then until you actually do, then you're like, oh, okay, this person's actually very smart. They're very helpful, and they have a lot of good energy, and I'm glad I got to work with them. So really, really embrace that. I really need you to embrace that. The other thing I'd like to talk about is what do you call it? Affirmations. I don't know if you guys are doing any affirmations. Like Scott, I was Scott's partner, but I'm the filler partner. So, we had some people that dropped out. So because we had, now we had an odd number. Because we had an odd number, then that means I'm no longer, I'm out. So that puts me out. So I'm the filler. So if another person joins or another person drops out, then I fill back in. But Scott and I would do affirmations every day. And my affirmations were, follow my prospecting schedule. I enjoy helping agents grow their business. I do 2 crew presentations every week. I attract qualified agents every day. So those are just things I would say. So think about those. And I'd like on our next call, I'm going to make the class more about how to create affirmations for yourself. It's not a hard exercise, but we don't have time to do it today. So we'll do it next week. Excuse me. So without that, so if you have any thoughts or questions, and also too, I just saw an email come across from Robin. I didn't get the chance to open it, but the sneak preview says I'll be out of town the 15th of December to January 7th. So and obviously people are going to be on vacation. I understand that. So if you're going to be out of town, make sure you communicate that to your partner. And then if you're the partner, so then if multiple people are going to be out of town, then maybe we'll kind of switch people around a little bit. And so anyway, things like that. So, and I realize it's a little bit of a challenge this time of year. We're adults. We're smart people. We can figure this out. In other words, if we can't figure out a simple schedule shuffle, we have no business helping people make hundreds of thousands of dollar decisions. I mean, we just don't have that right if we can't figure out how to maybe shuffle schedule somewhat. So anyway, that's all I got. Anybody have any questions before we go? No one, no questions. Okay. So if that's the case, then I'm going to go ahead and end the recording and end the call. So you guys have an awesome day.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Bye.